You know the word. You absolutely know the word. You've used it before. You've heard it 100 times. You'd recognize it instantly if someone else said it. And then the moment arrives. Someone is looking at you, waiting, and the word is just not there. It's gone, completely gone, like it never existed. And you stand there, smiling, buying time, running through every corner of your brain. And the harder you look for it, the more invisible it becomes. And then 10 seconds after the conversation moves on, the word arrives. Casually, like it was never missing, like it wasn't just the reason you wanted to disappear from the face of the earth. If this has happened to you, welcome. This episode is for you. Welcome to Fluency with Vivi. I'm Vivi, and this is Robert.
Hey everyone, I'm Robert. And I want to say right away, what Vivi just described has a name. It has a scientific explanation. And it is not a sign that your English is bad, it is a sign that you are human.
Okay. Before we get into the science, I need to tell you about a very specific moment that happened to me at a dinner party. A dinner party I still think about.
How bad was it on a scale of 1 to 10?
11. Solid 11. So I was at this dinner. International guests, very nice people, very casual conversation. And someone asked me, very warmly, very simply, what I did for a living.
The most basic question that exists.
The most basic question that exists, and I know the answer. I had answered this question in English dozens of times before. But in that moment, sitting at that table with everyone looking at me, my brain presented me with absolutely nothing.
Nothing?
Like a blank white screen. Not even the beginning of a word. Not even a fragment. Just white. And I could feel my face doing something very strange while this was happening. Like it was trying to look relaxed while internally I was in complete freefall.
What did you end up saying?
I said, and I want you to understand I have a job with an actual title. I said, I work with things.
Huh?
I work with things. I said that. To real adults at a real dinner table.
And what happened after?
They were very kind and asked what kind of things, and I said different things. And then someone changed the subject, and I spent the rest of the dinner completely silent, terrified of being asked anything else.
And the word, your job title. When did it come back?
In the car on the way home. Instantly. I opened my mouth to tell my friend what happened, and my job title came out perfectly, like it had never been gone.
Because it was never gone.
Because it was never gone, and that is exactly what we need to talk about today.
So here's what actually happened at that dinner table. And I want to explain this clearly because I think it will genuinely change how you understand yourself in these moments. Your brain has a very sophisticated stress response system when you feel social pressure. When you feel like you're being evaluated, judged, or watched, your brain activates what scientists call the fight or flight response.
Which I've heard of but not really understood in this context.
So the fight or flight response releases stress hormones, primarily cortisol and adrenaline, and these hormones do something very specific to your brain. They redirect resources. Your brain essentially decides, we are in a threat situation, we need to prioritize survival functions, and it pulls resources away from the prefrontal cortex.
And the prefrontal cortex is
The part of your brain responsible for language processing, complex thinking, word retrieval, and everything that requires conscious cognitive effort, including accessing vocabulary in a second language.
so when I'm nervous, my brain literally shuts down the language center.
It doesn't shut it down completely, but it significantly reduces access. It's like trying to load a web page on a very slow connection. The information is on the server. It exists. But the bandwidth to retrieve it, the speed of access, drops dramatically.
So my job title was there the whole time.
Your job title was completely intact. Every word of English you've ever learned was still there. But the retrieval pathway, the connection between I need this word and here is the word, was being throttled by stress hormones.
And that is why it came back the moment I got in the car.
The moment the social pressure disappeared, the stress response deactivated, the cortisol dropped, the prefrontal cortex came back online, and suddenly the word was right there, instantly available, like it had never been anywhere else.
Because it hadn't been anywhere else.
It had been there the entire time. The problem was never your English. The problem was your nervous system.
Your nervous system, not your English. Write that down, photograph it, tattoo it somewhere. Because I needed to hear that for years.
And here's something even more important. This happens to native speakers too.
Wait, really?
Everyone has experienced going blank on a word they absolutely know. A name, a common word, something they use every day. It happens to everyone in high-pressure moments. The difference is, a native speaker immediately interprets this as a normal brain glitch. They laugh it off. They say, "Oh, what's the word?" and keep going. But a non-native speaker interprets the same experience as proof that their English isn't good enough.
And that interpretation makes it worse.
Dramatically worse. Because the moment you think, "I can't remember because my English is bad," you add a second layer of stress, which releases more cortisol, which further reduces access to the language center, which makes the word even harder to find.
The anxiety creates more anxiety. The blankness creates more blankness.
It's a spiral, and the spiral starts not with forgetting the word, but with the interpretation you put on forgetting the word.
So the real problem is the story I tell myself in that moment.
Exactly. I forgot this word because I'm nervous. Manageable. I forgot this word because my English isn't good enough. Spiral.
Okay, strategies. Because I know people are sitting there having already experienced this today and wanting something they can actually do. Strategy 1, and I want to name this properly, the pause permission.
I love this one. Say more.
So the panic of forgetting a word comes partly from the feeling that you have to fill the silence immediately. Like silence equals failure. And the urgency of needing to speak now, immediately, right this second, is itself part of what blocks retrieval.
Because urgency is a form of stress, and stress reduces access.
So the pause permission is simply this. You give yourself explicit permission to pause, not to apologize, not to explain, not to say, "Sorry, my English," and dissolve with embarrassment, just to pause.
And what does that pause actually do physiologically?
You tell me.
Even a 2 or 3 second pause, especially if you take a breath during it, begins to deactivate the stress response. The cortisol starts to drop. The prefrontal cortex gets a tiny bit more bandwidth. And often, the word arrives in that pause.
And if you train yourself to expect the pause instead of panic, you stop flooding your system with more cortisol the moment you feel the blankness.
The pause becomes a tool instead of a sign of failure.
And practically, how do you fill the pause without it feeling like an awkward silence?
You have what I call bridge phrases. Short, natural phrases that buy you a few seconds without sounding like you're struggling. Let me think for a second. That's a good question. How do I put this? These are completely normal things native speakers say constantly. They're not admissions of weakness. They're just conversation.
And while you're saying, "Let me think for a second," your brain is decompressing.
And the word usually arrives before you even finish the sentence.
The pause permission, strategy 1.
R. Strategy 2. Reframe the blank.
V. This is the interpretation shift.
R. Exactly. Instead of interpreting the blank as "my English failed," you train yourself to interpret it as "my nervous system is being protective." Because that's what's actually happening. Your brain thinks you're in danger. It's trying to keep you safe. It's misguided. A dinner party is not dangerous, but the intention is protective.
V. So instead of feeling shame when the word disappears,
R. You feel something closer to, "Oh, there's my nervous system being dramatic again."
V. Ha! My nervous system being dramatic.
R. And when you can hold the experience with some lightness, when you can almost observe it from the outside, the stress response doesn't escalate, which means the cortisol doesn't spike, which means the retrieval pathway recovers faster.
V. May. So the reframe isn't just psychological, it's physiological.
R. Completely. The story you tell yourself literally changes the chemistry in your brain. My English failed. More cortisol, more blankness, deeper spiral. My nervous system got dramatic. Slight amusement. Drop in stress response. Word arrives.
V. And how do you practice this reframe when you're not in the moment? Because in the moment, it's hard to remember.
R. You practice it now, not in the heat of the experience, but here, calmly, before it happens. You imagine the situation, you feel the beginning of that blankness, and you consciously practice thinking, this is my nervous system. This is not my English. The word is there. The road to it is temporarily blocked. I can wait.
V. Like a fire drill before the fire.
R. Exactly. You rehearse the reframe when there's no pressure, so that when pressure arrives, the reframe is already the default response.
V. Strategy 3. Gradual exposure.
R. This is the long game, and it's the most powerful one.
V. So the reason the nervous system activates in English conversations, especially with native speakers, is partly because those situations feel high stakes and unfamiliar. And unfamiliarity is a form of perceived threat.
R. Your brain doesn't know what to expect. And uncertainty, not knowing how the situation will go, activates the stress response preemptively.
VA. So the strategy is to make those situations more familiar.
R. Yeah. Through gradual exposure, you deliberately put yourself in low-stakes versions of those high-pressure situations, regularly, repeatedly, until your nervous system has enough evidence that English conversations are safe, and starts to stop treating them as threats.
V. So if the terror is in meetings at work, you practice speaking in smaller, lower-stakes contexts first.
R. A language exchange with one patient person. A language app where you can speak without judgment. Talking to yourself in English at home. Leaving voice notes in English. Commenting in English on YouTube videos. Each of these is a small English conversation situation. Each one is building evidence in your nervous system's database that says, this is okay. I've been here before. It was fine.
V. And that evidence accumulates.
R. Every low-stakes English experience that ends normally, not catastrophically, is a data point telling your nervous system to lower the threat assessment. And over time, the threat assessment drops. And when the threat assessment drops, the cortisol stays lower. And when the cortisol stays lower, the words stay accessible.
V. So you're not just practicing English, you're training your nervous system. R.
You're teaching your body that English is safe. And that is honestly, for most people, the real work of becoming fluent.
V. Not vocabulary, not grammar, telling your nervous system that English is safe.
That's the work nobody talks about. And that's the work that changes everything.
V. I want to close with something before the CTA, because I think there's someone listening right now who has been carrying this for a long time. The shame of going blank. The embarrassment of standing there while words disappear. The private frustration of knowing that you know the language, that it's in there, and still feeling like your mouth and your brain are two separate entities that refuse to cooperate at the exact moment you need them to.
That experience is so real and so common.
V. And I want to say, you are not the problem. Your English is not the problem. Your nervous system is doing its job. A job it was designed to do, to protect you. It just doesn't know the difference between a real threat and an uncomfortable dinner conversation.
And you can teach it.
V. You can teach it, slowly, patiently, with every low-stakes English conversation that ends okay, with every pause you take instead of panic, with every moment you interpret the blankness as nervous system, not as failure. You are teaching your brain that English is safe, and every single time you speak, even badly, even nervously, even with a blank in the middle, you are doing that teaching.
And the words will come back faster and stay accessible longer, and the blank will become less frequent, not because your English improved, but because your nervous system finally believed you.
V. Finally believed you. V. Here is your challenge this week. I want you to find one low-stakes English-speaking moment. Tiny, safe, just you and minimal pressure. Talk to yourself in English for 2 minutes while you make coffee. Leave a voice note in English to no one. Say one sentence out loud in English when you're alone. And when the blank comes, because it will, pause, Breathe. Remind yourself this is my nervous system, not my English. V. And then come tell us in the comments, in English, one sentence, about a time the word disappeared and came back the moment the pressure was gone. We read every comment, and your story will help someone else feel less alone in theirs. V. If this episode put words to something you've been experiencing, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss next week. V, I'm Vivi.
And I'm Robert.
V, this is Fluency with Vivi. The words are there. Your nervous system just needs to believe it. See you next week.
Bye everyone.
V, bye.